Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the most must-see podcast here in the NJSSL. Welcome to the Cutting Redge. We are here today with one of our two guests for this afternoon. He is currently the son of the one and only Tengu Master. He is the greatest gift that never was for the Aqeedat-e-Muslim. And unfortunately, he has a long streak of losing in pretty much every NJSL season he's ever played in. So please welcome my guest at this time, the one and only Ali Hassan.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Let's do it, Reg. Let's do it.
Yes, sir, Ali Hassan. I know you've got a lot to say. I'm excited to hear all your takes for this week. Certainly, you have nothing to lose at this point, so you just hit it hard, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just letting everybody know before we start, nobody is safe. I said this to most people in person. Nobody's safe. I got nothing to lose at this point, so just letting you guys know. Just letting you guys know.
Exactly. And that includes you after who knows what you're going to say. You might not be safe after you leave this podcast, but we'll see. Well, let's start with talking about, before we are joined by our second guest, who I'll introduce a little bit later, let's start by talking about last week's games. We had three games, first of which, let's talk about the Sabr versus the Abbas Alamdars. This was a hard-fought game that I was in. I took part of that on Team Sabr. It was a very close game, back and forth, very chippy. A lot of good plays and a lot of sloppiness at the same time from both sides. Do you have any comments on this game, Ali Hassan?
If Look, not, Sabr Zainab, you guys are guys are a dominant team. When Morez really gets into that momentum, all it really takes is just takes him one shot just to get into that momentum of like draining pretty much all of the rest of the shots in the game. But I feel like, when it comes down to like clutch, like game time, it's definitely Morez, because once he hits that shot, it's over. Like he's not missing after that.
Yeah. And I will say he definitely played super well in that game. I think our whole team relatively played very well. I have to give a shout out to Ali Shah. He played his heart out in both games. Big shout out to Mehdi Jaffery. He kept the Alamdar's hopes alive. And unfortunately, it came a little bit short. I think the big difference in this one is that the bench for the Abbas Alamdars just didn't show up as they usually do. I feel like I didn't see much out of Shavo. I didn't see much out of Akbar Joffrey. So I think those guys are expected to kind of hit play at a certain level off the bench, and I just didn't see that much from them. And I think that might have been the difference maker, especially with a half injured Farhan Hassan out there and whatnot, and a returning Gamran. It just wasn't it wasn't a good game.
Yeah, it looked like it was just majority Mehdi out there that was putting the numbers up, but at some point you have to start summing these guys to keep guys fresh, because Farhan obviously is still injured. If he's playing with that injury, he's not gonna have much of an impact on the team.
Definitely. And I think Abbas Hayler took a big hit to the mouth in this one.
Right.
He's still able to play through it, but in the second game, but he did have to sit out for a bit, and that's when they could have capitalized. They could not, and Sabr Zainab took that victory. On the other court, let's get to the other game. That was the Vilayat Warriors versus who the Vilayat Warriors play. I'm forgetting. The Nojawans, yeah, this was a pretty one-sided game from what I saw. The Nojawans just absolutely came to play. Mosid was dropping buckets. Ali Mirza was dropping buckets. Adil came to play. Like their whole team was just like ready to go. Adnan was grabbing boards. It was ready. And the Vilayat Warriors, on the other hand, they were missing a lot of their guys. It's been kind of like an on and off season for them all season, and certainly it didn't work out the way that they wanted to in that game. What were your thoughts on this one?
It started getting really sloppy in the second half. Obviously, Fitrs, he's a great player. Once he really gets, just like Morez, once he gets into that momentum of putting shots up, he's just pretty consistent. But I feel like, during the second half, it's such a one-sided game that these guys just completely fell apart. Like the chemistry and all that stuff that they had or whatever, it just completely fell apart. None of the shots were really going down. And I got to give it to the Nojawans, dude. These guys, phenomenal team. Ali Mirza, he's a great player for his height. I mean, it's like he's like the Muggsy Bogues. He's like one of the smallest guys in the leagues. He's putting up amazing numbers. Adil, obviously,
good reference.
Adil, obviously, just a all around just a good player. And Mosid, I mean, he was missing a lot of his 3-pointers, so I'm not really gonna say much about him. But Yeah, obviously a big man, big man. So yeah, it was definitely a one sided game.
Yes, it was. And as a result of this one-sided game, the Nojwans took the 7 seed, and the 8 seed was then determined between a match between the Vilayat Warriors and Sabr and Sabr, who is now making a name for themselves as the Eliminators. Basically did exactly what the Nojwans did, and went up pretty early. Took a sizable lead. The Vilayat Warriors tried hanging around and tried to come back, but they couldn't do it. And I don't know if they really caught up at any point. At one point it was like a 10 or 12 point lead, and I just don't
Right.
think they ever came back from that. Still, they're obviously worn out. At Jaffery, I think they had 6 guys. Jaffery had to leave halfway through the game, so they had 5. Heather play looked like he was getting gassed.
Yeah.
Ali Hassan played pretty well. He was getting some boards. He was playing aggressive, but I just don't. The team was just too worn out, and they just
Yeah.
didn't have enough subs. And
Yeah.
in this game, I think our bench kind of came out a little bit more, so that was definitely good to see. So yeah, so with that, Sabr took the 8 spot. Did you have any comments on this game?
Yeah, so I feel like after that first game, just obviously losing the first game, it's obviously it's gonna hurt the morale of the team. Going into that second game, these guys are really tired. You could see it on Sayyid Ali's face. His hair is all messed up. He's sweating a lot. These guys, it was difficult to go into that second game after losing the first game and just getting completely destroyed. Not having any leads, and I have to give it to Ali Raza though. He was playing really good both games. I think
Hmm.
I think both games he had was averaging like at least 10 offensive reboards. He was just rebounds. He was just there to always grab the board somehow.
Yeah,
And
it
honestly,
definitely worked out. It definitely worked out. I think it just in our
yeah,
game he had like maybe even like I don't know how many boards he got, but he scored like at least 10 or 12, I think, off of
right,
them.
yeah, yeah,
So it worked out pretty well
yeah,
to keep them alive, but certainly just wasn't enough to get the job done, unfortunately.
yeah. And then once you're tired, you just start making really really sloppy mistakes, and then
Tough mistakes.
turnovers, and that's just how you lose the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hey, it happens, but that's okay. They all look forward to coming back next year, inshallah. But until then, we now have our round one of the playoffs set. We've got 8 teams, and I'm going to hit you from 1 to 8, and we're going to talk about what are the keys to victory in this round one of playoffs. And hopefully, we'll be joined by our second guest in that time, who is at home struggling, probably still sleeping at this point, useless character. But that's okay. We'll get him in there. But in the meantime, so we've got in the number 1 seed, we've got Sharuk, Zain Mumtaz, and the Enlightened Elite. In the number 2 spot, we've got Amdali, the Miz, and Shujat Ali then in the 3 spot, we've got the Commanders of Mujtaba with Rak and Abbas Azhar and Yafa. In the 4th spot, we've got
Just
who's the
right.
14? We have Jazba-e-Haq with ZJ and Zulfikar and Irtizam Mumtaz. In the 5 spot, we've got the Sadiq Scholars with your dad, with Raza Ahmed, with Basil. In the 6th spot, we've got the Mehdi Mercenaries, who would include Mudassir and Professor and Thrab, and the rest of the team. In the 7th spot, we've got the Najwans, and then who we just talked about a little earlier. And then the 8th spot, we've got Sabr Zainab. Now, I want to point out, at this point, Sabr Zainab, in the last 2 weeks, has eliminated single-handedly, more or less, eliminated 3 teams. So let's actually talk about this game first. This is going to be their hardest game of the season, but now that they are back at full force, do we think that Sabr Zainab, compared to when they played in the Enlightened Elite, a few weeks ago, without Morez, without Abbas Heather, do you think that they have a chance in this one?
Honestly, it's gonna be a really tough task to keep Shark, quiet because he's just a phenomenal player all around. He's always making shots. His the driving skills, whatever. He's just such a great player. It's gonna be really hard to contain him. But I feel like for Summer Zenham, you guys have big guys. You guys have well-rounded players that you could just put a few guys on Shark. Just put about three guys on Shark and just leave the rest of the team open. Because in my opinion, I don't think the rest of the team is going to contribute much. It's just going to be Shark the whole time, just putting up a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Sharuk, he's the GOAT, he's the king. He is he's what everybody aspires to be, but no man can ever achieve that sort of greatness. He is one of the top players I may have ever seen in my life, probably that I'll ever see in my life. And and on top of that, he's just an all around wonderful human being. He is, he's got the charisma, the character, the swagger of some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. So I think that I have nothing to sing but praises for Shahrukh.
Yeah,
Now, I think the key for Sabr Zainab, exactly what you said, is to basically force the rest of the team to basically struggle, and at least and basically hope that we as an offensive unit can stay consistent and capitalize and make those make the good passes and not have too many turnovers and finish. If we can do that, we might be able to keep up with the damage that Shahrukh puts on the board. But if not, then we're going to be in trouble. I think one of the X factors here is the one and only Sean Gosmi, who he could go off at any minute. Certainly, Kumail being out is very helpful because they don't have a very large sized team. We'll have to definitely try and out rebound them. But again, out rebounding a team with Shahrukh on is not an easy task.
yeah.
So that's going to be step one for sure. Who do you think, from Sabr Zainab's standpoint, takes keeps plays balls out, keeps their team alive, drops 30 points? Who do you think it's going to be?
It's 100% gonna be Morez. 100% gonna be Morez. This Morez the entire season, even when he has when he has the bad days, he still will pull up and just start draining threes, and just having those just phenomenal layups. So I feel like I'm definitely gonna give that to Morez. If once you pass the rock to Morez and he gets that open three and he makes it, that's game over right there. I don't think Shark even stands a chance against that.
There you go. There you go. So it sounds like you're going to be going with the elite, or you're going to be going with Sabr Zainab on this one.
I'm definitely going with Sabr Zainab this time.
Oh my God! I don't know what you're doing, because I'm not even going to go with Sabr Zainab on this one. We're going elite all the way. Team Shark, baby, let's go. But anyways, so that's definitely where we're going here. All right, let's move on to our second game. While we still wait for our guest, who he's not even an honored guest anymore. He's struggling out here. So let's move on to the second game, which we can talk about the Shujaat-e-Muslim versus the Najawans. This is going to be a hot battle, I think. But why don't you tell me your thoughts on this one to start?
So obviously Shajat obviously eminently one of the best players in the league, but Shajat Eliasgar is full of guys like Miz and Daniel. Obviously Daniel's on the team, but I feel like the matchups between these two teams is gonna be good solid matchups. I feel like if the Najawans put Adil on Ahmed Ali, they get most sit on Daniel, and honestly just throw back to the old days and just put Ali Mirza on Ahmed Ali and just see how the game rolls out just like that. So I feel
Yeah,
like if they continue to play good ball and just contain Ahmed Ali, I feel like the Najawans can 100% take this one.
I'm gonna stop you right there. No, it's definitely good analysis. I'm gonna stop you right there and introduce our other guest at this time, because now we're gonna go from this beautiful couple to a beautiful threesome with you, me, and ZJ. Oh man, I accidentally blew it. And please introduce our guest at this time, the one of the top members of Jazba-e-Haq, and the second pick overall, and second pick in the first round for this season, Zain Jaffery. But Zain Jaffery. Yo, assalamu alaikum,
What's up,
brother.
everybody?
What's up,
Not
brother?
much. ZJ,
Alaikum salam. How are you guys?
Good man.
Good man, good. ZJ, I have a question for you. How is it that you roll out of bed, your voice is like dead, we can barely understand anything you're saying, yet you still look like $1 million?
I just got lucky. I slept on the right side of the bed. My hair didn't get messed up. It
There you go.
doesn't happen too
There you
often,
go,
so
man.
when it
There
does
you go.
happen,
I
you
mean,
gotta
well,
roll with it. What was that?
yeah, 100%, 100%. No, I was gonna say there's a little bit of a lag, it seems, but that's okay. Hopefully, it won't interrupt us too much.
Okay.
But we'll see. All right, DJ. We were actually just in the middle of talking about the predictions for this upcoming week. But before we continue with that, if you could be so kind as to honor us, as you are the sponsor for this week's podcast, as per Infallible Wisdom, why don't you hit us with a little bit of what to expect with Infallible Wisdom moving forward, and for those at home who have not gotten a chance to read it, what they can expect by getting a copy of the book.
Yeah, of course. So we've been kind of dead on social media. So work's been quite busy. But in 2024, you can expect a relaunch of our social media campaign just to spread the message of the Alphabet, in a way that resonates with majority of people. Um, and then you can also potentially find a new product that is another reading item towards the end of this year, hopefully. So we're working on that actively. But if you were to purchase the copy that we have available today, I think it'll honestly be, at least from what I've heard other people say, alhamdulillah, and also just from my own experience, but reading the hadiths of Ahl Bayt, especially 365 of them, which is probably what's in the book, I think a little more than that, um, really help shape your life and change your whole perception on the way that you live. I think there's a hadith that says like if you memorize 40 hadiths from us, like you'll be set in life, something along those lines. And you know, for the Alphabet to have the confidence to say that just shows you how much wisdom they actually have, right? Because no one else can say if you just know 40 of our hadiths, any 40, your life will be different. So to go through 365, truly your perception on life and the way you act, at least the way that you should act, I should say, will change drastically, and your life will be improved that much more. So, I mean, if you need help getting a copy, just hit me up. We have a Kindle version available on Amazon. We also have 2 copies, hardcover, paperback, available on our website, infallible-wisdom.com. Hopefully, we also start releasing more clothing. I know we did a lot last year. Just thinking of some new concepts right now, so hopefully that is something you see as well.
There you go. Lots to look forward to. And again, that is infallible-wisdom.com. Do hit it up. Do get yourself a copy of the current existing book, and also the supposed reading material that's going to come out later this year, inshallah. All right.
Inshallah.
In the meantime, ZJ, we just talked about Enlightened Elite versus Sabr Zainab that's coming up. We also talked a little bit about Shujat Ali versus Nojwans. But, I want to hear your take, Zij. So just to put some perspective on it, Sabr Zainab won 3 games in a row to make it into the playoffs and knocked out the Guardians of Fadak, knocked out the Vilayat Warriors, and knocked out Abbas Alamdars. So now they have a chance to redeem themselves after a loss a couple of weeks ago to Enlightened Elite. Both teams, I believe, everyone's going to be there with the exception of Gumel, who is nursing torn ACL. So, how do you think this game's going to go, and what do you think is Sabr Zainab's chance in this one?
Honestly, like Sharak, mashallah, has been playing amazing this season, as we all know. What is he averaging? Like 58 points per game,
Something
which
like
is
that.
insane. But Sabr Zainab, honestly, are a great team. I think if Ali, aka Bobby, plays the way he played in the play-ins, with that sense of urgency, and he actually attacks the rim, I think they have a better shot at potentially winning. But obviously, you can't really, the way that Sean, Gazmi, and Shahrukh have been playing together, along with Ali Jawad and others on their team. They have a solid squad, let alone Shahrukh whenever he needs to go off. However, I think if there is one team that could potentially guard Shahrukh, not team, I should say individual, it's Abbas Heather. um, he's a great elite defender. Shahrukh himself has said that Abbas is one of the best defenders. So assuming he plays the best defense of his life, Shahrukh will probably drop 50. So we'll have to see how Sabr Zainab plays against that, and if they're aggressive on offense. I know Abbas has been more of a facilitator more recently, especially when we played against him. He took a few threes and made them, but wasn't really aggressive. I think if their team is aggressive on offense and they play smart, I know Morez is also there. So if everyone plays on their A game, it's a very lethal team. Um,
Absolutely,
so
absolutely. No,
yeah, I
that's
mean, it just depends on a few things.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's an excellent way to put it. But it sounds like at the end of the day, it could be anyone's game. Certainly, ZJ, it sounds like you're ultimately going for the elite on this one.
Yeah, just because it's Shark, and I know he's very hungry for a championship, and he's been working hard. So so and you can't really stop him on offense. So like I know it's gonna be point for point matching. So it's up to like Sabr to make their shots and do what they can to limit not
Absolutely.
just Sharuk, but the way that they played against us was very smart. Um, because they did a zone defense and Ali Jawad and Sean would just leak out because they were at the two on top of the box. Um, every single time that we missed a shot, Sharuk would just chuck it up to them and they'd score. So like they play very strategically too. Um, obviously, if they had Gumel, I think I would more likely go with Enlightenly. But right now it's like 60-40.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So it sounds like both me and ZJ are going for the enlightened elite on this one, and Ali Hassan went with Sabr Zainab. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun game, that's for sure. On to the next one: Shujat-e Al versus the Nojwans. Ali Hassan, you said who won this game the first time these two played?
Versus Shujat Ali Asgar and Nojawans was Shujat Ali Asgar.
Shujat-e but this time you're saying the Nojwans are going to be able to hold them off.
Yeah, because since I mean they've been playing phenomenally this. I mean just this past Sunday they played really well against both the Wilayat Warriors. I mean just the Wilayat Warriors. So I feel like it's just those key matchups that if they get those key matchups then I think they're good. I think they can honestly really keep the game tight and keep it a really interesting game.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely is going to be a close game, and I think that the key X factor here is Mo Siddiqui, because Mo Siddiqui is going to. I think he's going to shut out Said Daniel. I think he's going to eliminate Said Daniel as a factor in this one. Um, Despite that, though, I think that Shujat Al Yazgar is hungry the same way Sharuk's team is hungry for victory, and I think that they are going to take this one. It's going to be a close battle, and I think we're going to see a lot out of guys like Irfan and the Miz keeping Shujat Al Yazgar in this one. But anything can happen. ZJ, what is your thought on this game?
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup. It's really hard to stop Ahmed Ali. I don't know who um, on the Nojawans can defend him if he's on his game, and they have a lot of good perimeter shooting. So even if say Daniel is out of the game, they keep it outside and they hit their shots. They have a chance at winning. I think it's pretty evenly matched. So I can't really pick a winner. I don't know if that's, but I know we like to be a little toxic. So let me pick. I'll pick the Nojawans on this one.
Oh man,
I
so
hear
for
most of Dickey's back in form though, so
yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
I will say he hasn't had like the sort of breakout game that I would expect him to have had, but I think it's going to be close. I think ultimately Enlightened will, the Shujat will take it, but it sounds like both you guys are going for the Nojuan. So Amadeli and Miz and all you guys, I just hope you remember that these teams that both these guys went for a team that barely made the playoffs. But good. So that's number two. Next game number three. I think this one's going to be an exciting one. It's the Commanders of Mujtaba versus the Mehdi Mercenaries. Ali Hassan, who won this game the last time these two teams played?
It was the Commanders of Mustafa that won it last time they played.
Commanders of Mujtaba won it, and I guess remind me of one thing. Your team was Aqeedat-e-Muslim. Now
Right.
they lost to every single team except who?
Except Commanders of Mustafa.
Except the Commanders of Murtabas. So one of the Commanders of Murtabas losses, and they only had three losses, but one of them was against like the most worst team that probably ever has existed in the NJSSL. So I think that anything could happen in this game. I don't think you give this one automatically to the Commanders. I think Thorab and Professor are just as hungry. I think they're gonna ball out. Even with that, will they be able to stop Yafa? Maybe, maybe not. In fact, I think maybe Mercenaries barely lost this game the first time these two played, and that was without Yafa. Or maybe it wasn't. I can't remember. I just remember it was a close game. I think it was a 3-point was the final score as a 3-point difference. I'm going with the Mercenaries on this one. I think they're gonna be hungry. They are a team that consists of guys that in big moments like this tend to fall flat. But I think this time they're not going to fall flat. I think they're gonna go all the way. Professor's gonna want it. Throb's gonna want it. Someone from amongst the bench guys is gonna step up. At least I'm hoping. We'll see. DJ, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, the Mercenaries have been playing great, but they're heavily reliant on just two people performing. Whereas Commanders and Mujtaba, they beat us. I mean, but I think we lost to both these teams actually. But Commanders and Mujtaba have a solid squad, and they play really well together. I think they had a really good strategy against us by using Yafa appropriately. So I think Yafa will give Professor some trouble, as much trouble as you can give someone like Professor, just because of his strength and how tall he is. And if that's the case, then it just depends on who's able to stop Throb. Obviously Throb has great games every now and then. Well, for the season, most of the time he's had a great game. It just lets us see if he performs. Like you said, they tend to fall flat in the playoffs. So it just depends on how Professor and Throb play, and then also their supporting cast, right? Let's see how many buckets Mudassir hits from beyond the arc, right? I think every point will help them in this case. But Abbas, Yafa, and their team overall is pretty strong. So it's tough to pick, honestly. I don't know how you do it, Reg. I'll just go with the Mahdi Mercenaries because I want Professor to advance in the playoffs since this is his first season where he's crossed that line.
I was going to say, DJ, at the end of the day, it's a 50-50 shot. You just got to pick somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
But who'd have thunk that at this point that both of us would be against the Commanders on this one? But Ali Hassan, what are your thoughts and who you got for this one?
Obviously, Mahdi Mercenaries, Professor. Which when we played Professor's team, even without Fessel, we kept the game so close, which should say something because we're a completely horrid team. And if we were able to keep that game so close, then that definitely says something about Mahdi Mercenaries. I mean, obviously, Professor such a great player, but he's really a predictable player. He always just has.
Now you're calling out Professor.
He just has that one. He just always has that one shot where he's just he's always just chucking it up, hoping that it goes in. I mean, it's really not. It's not skill. It's just a bunch of luck because he's so massive. So at some point,
I should have made you sign a waiver before you got on here. Like you're talking more than I do.
Professor, I do not condone Ali Hassan's analysis.
I told Professor, I was like, Professor, I'm not letting you live on this podcast. I'm gonna go completely ham. But honestly, it is true that Professor is a good player because he is big and he can get in the paint and obviously
because he is big.
Shots. But I feel like if you just put Yafa on Professor, I mean, if I was able to block Yafa, that means anybody's. I mean, if I was able to block Professor, that means anybody's able to block Professor. So I mean, at that point, I'm just gonna have to go with the Commanders and Mustafa on this one.
Fair analysis. I think both teams, given all the things that we just said about this game, I think both teams are going to be hungry and chippy, and it's going to be a tight battle. I'm pretty sure at this point now that they are the underdog on this podcast, at least, the Abbas out there is going to drop like 50 points in this game.
Yeah. Who's gonna get the first tech of this game?
Who is going to get the first tech?
What kind of question is that?
If it was 2021, I would have said probably Professor 2, but he's come a long way in like making sure that he is, not a guy that gets text for no reason. Yeah. Except for the jerseys, he might get the text jersey. Yeah. But outside of that, I don't think it's gonna be him. I think it might actually be Yafa. Yafa like somehow gets away with talking a lot of smack and not getting text. He does. But I think it might be him this time. But good. So it's gonna be a close one. The Commanders most about are the higher seed. They did win last time. They're definitely got great chemistry. So let's see if they're going to be able to put away the Mahdi Mercenaries. And with that, we'll move to our last game. And this is actually your team, DJ. So this is Jazba-e-Haq versus the Sadiq Scholars. So Jazba-e-Haq, I believe Ali Hassan, Jazba-e-Haq won the first time that they played.
Right.
We didn't just
Yeah.
win;
So,
we spanked them. Honestly,
oh
yeah,
yeah.
it was
Oh
pretty
yeah. This
bad.
was just last week, right? Or
No,
like
this is a few weeks ago.
few
Yeah,
weeks ago. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, so definitely ZJ took the who said has on his shirt better than Irfan, went out and proved that he was better than Irfan by beating him directly. What do you think happens this time, Ali Hassan, when these two teams meet?
I'm just gonna put it out there, ZJ. You are 100% better than Irfan, and I think I'm much better than Irfan myself because Irfan really is not that good of a player. If I'm being completely honest with everybody that's watching, Irfan, if you're listening right now, let's 1v1 because at that point I'm just gonna end up beating you. Uh, and I told Irfan, I was like, man, why are you always dodging the 1v1? Because he's like, nah, I'm always too busy. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But obviously, solid scholars. I mean, I guess Irfan can make maybe like two threes. That's really all he's gonna do for the game. But it's gonna be up to the other guys to like. It's gonna be up to my dad because I know my dad is gonna be dropping at least 80 points that game, and he's taking these guys to the championship game. So
That's
yeah,
funny. Ali Hassan. Well, actually, ZJ, you go first on your thoughts. Obviously, I'm hoping you have your own team as your
yeah.
prediction.
I just love Ali Hassan's analysis. I love it. No, so I think last time we played, we won by a lot, but I think that's mainly because we were shooting very well. We've been struggling in terms of shooting more recently, so I think this game's gonna be much closer than it was last time, to be honest. Because obviously they have an amazing team all around. Honestly, as long as Abu doesn't harass me on defense, I think we should have a good shot at winning this one. Um, but yeah, I think overall it's going to be a pretty close game. It really depends on how the key players play on both sides. Irfan does hit two or three threes usually, but sometimes you never know. He can pop off, right? He's a very streaky shooter. So I've told my guys I don't want to see Irfan even breathe with the ball, regardless of what Ali Hassan's views of him are. I think he's a great facilitator. If they play team ball, they'd likely have a great shot at winning, right? If it just becomes one person like Raza Ahmed having to carry the load, I don't think they're going to win. As long as we play team ball, I don't think there's a question of us losing. And if Heather and Zulfi are hitting their shots and I'm taking the ball in and we're being efficient, then I think it's really hard to beat our team.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely well said. ZJ, and I think this is going to be a super close game. It's going to be, I think this is going to be one of the games that has like the best team ball versus team ball kind of idea, and everyone's going to get involved in it to somehow contribute, and whichever team just has more contributors from the rest of the team, outside of the main, one or two scorers and ball handlers, that team is going to win. I think that I'm going to give this one to you guys as well. Certainly, Ali Hassan, just to respond to kind of what you said earlier, also, certainly, I think the one like thing to keep in mind is that the playoff king, aka Irfan, is he's it's playoff time. This is where he shines. This is where he's going to drop 20 buckets in the first half alone, and then and then these guys are going to have to adjust. But I think they'll find a way to adjust and knock him out of the second half the same way that. I think it was like Hussein Abdi's team last year did against them on the Heat, and I think that offensively, the Jazba-e-Haq will probably be able to capitalize, on mismatches, on just like guys falling asleep on defense. I think that they're going to outplay the Solid Scholars, and it's going to be a close game. But I think Jazba-e-Haq is going to take it. Final score going to be roughly 62-58, something along the lines of that. Um, Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, awesome, guys. Well, I definitely appreciate all the both of you guys coming on and all the insight. Last question for each of you, ZJ. Who's based off this season and the four teams that have been eliminated thus far? Whose stock do you think drops the most? Who do you think who is a first round pick gonna drop to the second round, or a second, third round pick gonna drop to rounds 5 or 6? Anything like that?
You're trapping me. Ali Hassan, you want to go first? Let me
Hey,
think
that's what
about
I
it
like.
real quick.
yeah.
All right, you think about it. Ali Hassan, you can answer that question, or the other. I'll give you the opposite question, and ZJ, you can think about this too. Would be based off of the guys that have played on these teams that have been eliminated. Who do you think is gonna shoot up and be like a second or third round pick when maybe they were a fifth or sixth round pick this year, or even a first round pick possibly?
Yeah, so I'm obviously gonna start off with my team because we're just a laughing stock of the league. But I feel like a lot like our team definitely played good ball. Um, but I feel like first round. I'm definitely gonna go in the first round because I'm just such a great player. Obviously, I'm just gonna start off with that. But I feel like everybody that was drafted, I think they might stay in the same spot, just because I think what it was that it wasn't the right.
Let me stop you, Ali Hassan. Let me stop you. Faisal, do you think he gets a top three pick next year?
No,
Do you think he gets a
no.
first round pick next year?
Um,
That was
maybe.
gonna be my answer, by the way. Who's top
All
drop?
right, well, what ZJ? Same question. What's your thought?
I mean, Faisal's a great player. Um, and
He just has
honestly,
to.
like to be fair to Faisal, like the team that was drafted after he got drafted wasn't the best, like selection of folks to support
Oh
Faisal.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I think Faisal's more. He could definitely still go first round, probably later in the first round, or like first few picks of the second round. But it heavily depends on the support that he has, right? Because he needs the right players who support his play style to be on his team, which their team clearly did not have, which
yeah.
caused a lot of struggle. But yeah, you need like to be a top player in the league, you need to be versatile and not only be able to shoot but also take it in, which Faisal can. You know, he's a great. He drives in. If he plays aggressive, he's a great player. But I don't think we saw much of that this season,
All
and
right,
that's
fair
probably
enough.
because he was like, "It's not worth it. We're not gonna win any games."
Very fair, very fair. Similar question for the other first round picks. So, for example, Farhan Hassan went from being the first overall pick last season to kind of dropping to, I guess, six or seven this season. Do you think he's going to drop further, especially given how injury prone he can be? Or do you think that he maintains a first round pick?
Well, hopefully he gets his surgery is successful. I know he's setting up to get surgery, and that'll make him less injury prone because that's really the only injury that he's been prone to so far. Alhamdulillah.
Mm,
Hopefully, that finishes with the surgery. But yeah, I think Farhan he's a great player, man. Like when we played him last season, I think he was like 90% from three. He just would not
hmm
miss a shot. Right? He's been practicing. He's an athlete. So I don't think you could go wrong with Farhan anywhere in the first round. Again, it depends on who you have to support him though, because defensively, it's not. I mean, it's not the hardest one-on-one assignment if you have a really good defender on him. Um,
hmm
but if he has a supporting cast who set the right screens, it's almost impossible to guard him and whoever else he has on his team, like we saw with the Blazers last year.
yeah. All right, Ali Hassan, Mehdi Jaffery. Do you think he goes back to the first round, or do you think he will maintain a second round pick?
I think he's just gonna stay in the first round. I think Mehdi's the better Joffrey brother, honestly, because he's just such a well-rounded player. Honestly, just yeah, I definitely think Mehdi's gonna stay in the first round, 100%.
All right. Well, as a caveat to that, you think he's going to go before ZJ next year or after ZJ?
Well, obviously, everybody in the league loves ZJ so much, so he's obviously gonna go first.
Ah, he's falling back on his heels.
No, obviously ZJ, because
You guys stick to your story.
no, I'm if I was the captain, I would 100% choose Mehdi before you, because I feel like Mehdi could create more. But it also depends on the guys that he has on the team. Same thing with
Yeah,
Fessel. If Fessel were to have the right guys on his team, he could be probably one of the best players in the league. It really just depends on who you have on your team.
absolutely, absolutely.
If you put
All
me
right.
on the two teams Maddie had past couple seasons, so this season and last season, where they didn't even make the playoffs, I'm pretty sure we'd at least make the playoffs. That's all I'm gonna say.
Obviously, because you and Mehdi obviously have chemistry, so you guys obviously know what's gonna happen in
No,
the
no,
game.
he's saying if he took Mehdi Joffrey's place on that team.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
oh
that's
no.
probably accurate. I would actually, I would agree with that for sure. All right,
But Maddie has been
Fitness.
grinding though. He's been in the gym. He's
Yeah,
trying to get better. I
he's
told him,
definitely
let me
been playing.
train you. You'll be elite. But he went to Sharok instead, so he'll probably be even better.
There you go, man. All these guys, they know what they're doing. Fitness and Sayed Ali, do you think they maintain? For like I guess they were the 12th and 13th picks. Do you think that they're going to be at that same thing next year, or earlier or later?
Go ahead,
ZJ,
DJ.
I
ZJ,
think if
question
Fitty
for you.
can expand his game to drive in more and again just play more aggressive. He's a great player, bro. He knows the game. So I do think that he'll stay there. Same with Sayed Ali. Like there's not too many ball handlers in the league that are better than him. So yeah, I do think they both stay where they got drafted this season.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and honestly, I think they built up some good chemistry together too. So it might be worth it to kind of grab them both again
Mhm.
next season. For the same team, so definitely could come in handy. Um, the and shout out to Sayed Ali. He showed up when it mattered. Where a lot of guys on his team have not been there the last few weeks. But definitely shout out to Sayed Ali. I've been talking trash about him all season, but he's definitely a good guy. All right, last team. Who's left? Oh, the Guardians. Um, do we think that Sajjad Al-Casey stays at number 2? I mean, I think you can argue that Saad definitely will still be a number 1 pick, not like a first round pick, given that he basically carried this team pretty much every game. Does Sajjad, like I feel like Sajjad, you can argue his stock kind of dropped. He might have been playing like On did, like similar to like a third round player, more so than a second round player. And basically every other guy on that team probably also played like a round worse than they should have. Ali Hassan, what do you think about like Sajjad?
If I'm being completely honest, I don't even know who Sajjad is. So I've never heard of no Sajjad. So
Damn, bro. All right, then forget you, man. ZJ, what's your thought?
That's so funny. Well, Sajjad, like when he showed up, at least games that I've seen them do really well second half of this season. Um, like he's played really well. Um, so I think if he goes to third round, he'd be a he'd be like a sleeper.
Yeah.
I think he's more inclined to go like mid second round, late second round because he's a great support player. And Saad, then are they in the playoffs by the way?
No, we
No,
knocked them out.
right? Yeah, they knocked out. Okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, like they were playing really well together second half of the season, so I think Sajjad stays in second round. I think if he goes third round, it's a steal, honestly, just because of
Yeah.
the way he plays and he knows the game, And so around third round is when that starts to drop off, especially towards the tail end.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, definitely we have lots of fun to look forward to next season. Inshallah, we also look forward to all these guys playing in football. I guess the player list for that is going to come out soon. So we'll have lots of discussion in subsequent podcasts on NJSL football when that returns. And that'll be probably season 4 of the Cutting Redge to come back for NJSL football.
Also,
But
I just
until
want to
then,
say, Ryan Alidina, his stock is the one that's going up the highest
oh, hey,
on
we
Maz's
forgot
team.
about all the guys that are going up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely good call with that, ZJ. I mean, I think easily Rayon will go up. Aside from him, I don't know if anybody else on any of these teams will have a stock that goes up to maybe a Gamron probably will. Gamron might actually
Yeah.
make it to the second
My
round.
stock is going down after my past few games. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you can, like Ali Hassan said, the league loves you so much, they're still going to take you in the first overall, right? You got picked over Sharok, right?
yeah, I did. Surprisingly, shout out to Arizona.
Classic. All right. Well, until then, we've got a few weeks left of basketball. Let's finish strong, capitalize, and go from there. Thank you both for joining us. And inshallah, we will see you guys back on the next Cutting Ledge. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Assalamu alaikum and Shabbat khair.